to the Seamless Kitchen Show. This is a brand new thing for me, and I also just moved cross country. So for those of you listening in on the podcast version of this episode, you cannot see, but there are strategically placed moving boxes right behind me. But it's just my style to kind of do something like this, to move cross country, and then also decide to take up a brand new endeavor like starting a video show weekly. Like I said, I am really excited about this. The whole reason behind wanting to start a video show, was that meal planning content can tend to be a little bit dry. It's okay. We can say it. We can say it out loud. Meal planning can be boring, and talking about meal planning can be boring. Just get it out there. It's true. We're all about honesty here, and I'm fine with it. But because that is the case, I thought, giving the tips and strategies that I love to teach around meal planning and around shopping and planning and executing meals for our families, I thought, you know what, why not do it like a video or, a podcast? I'm kind of doing both simultaneously here. Here's my podcast mic. Just because I thought it would be so much more lighthearted and fun for you to be able to see my face, for me to kind of be my goofy self on camera, and for us to just get to know each other a little bit better instead of like words behind a screen. That is just not my wheelhouse. Writing is not my favorite way to get my personality across. And so this is going to be so much more fun. What is this bright thing in the background here? Where am I? What is this? That's bothering me. If you were listening, I had something like over in the corner of the screen that I get kind of easily distracted. So I'm going to apologize in advance for that. If you are not that familiar with me, which you should be if you're listening to this, but just in case, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Allie Peach, and I am a meal planning coach for busy moms. So I teach kitchen strategies around shopping, planning, prepping, and cooking that give moms the ability to not only make all of this possible on a regular basis for their families, but for it to also be fun. We want cooking for our families to be fun and possible and budget friendly and all of those things. So that is what I absolutely love to teach, and that's what this show is going to be all about. And because I know that doing all of these tasks that we as moms have, including meal planning, is enough in and of itself, like to make a sane person go crazy. We have a lot on our plates, all of us do, I totally understand. I also want what I teach in these video and podcast episodes to speak to your heart also. So there are lessons that can be learned in the kitchen that will carry over into other parts of our life. A full cup will spill out, and that is true regardless of whether it is full of positivity or negativity. So I want you to be able to walk away from what you learn in these episodes to spill out into the other areas of your life, not just in your kitchen, in a positive way. So that is my goal. I promise to show up here every single week, Lord willing, and I might not always look the most put together. My house might not always look the most put together. I do not have a fancy video studio. I do not have fancy equipment, and I do not have multiple hours in the day to make sure that this is perfect. But that is the point. That's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do this in a video, is because it cannot be perfectly edited. Because y'all, I just don't have the capacity for perfection when it comes to video. But I am a real mom of 2 kids. I have a real husband. I have a real messy house most of the time. And I thought it would be good for me to just be able to be real with you on that level, and kind of share in that with you, because we're all in the same boat. We are all in this together. We're all in this together. So that all being said, I am going to go ahead and jump into today's topic, and it is all about getting past the overwhelm that comes with starting something new. So, starting a new routine that you know is going to be really good for you, but there's just a block there. There's just some kind of hurdle of overwhelm that you just cannot get past, so you never dive into that new thing. And this happens with daily schedules. This happens with working out. This happens with meal planning. I hear some excuses, the same excuses all the time when it comes to why I have not started meal planning yet. So today I want to get past some of those hurdles by highlighting one excuse that disguises itself in many, many, many different ways, but it's all the same excuse, and it's really sneaky. So it might sound like I'm not a good cook, or it might sound like I am not a very organized person, so I can't XYZ. Or it might sound like I just can't get a handle on my schedule, so I can't dedicate time to meal planning. Or it might sound like I just cannot figure out how to take control of my budget, so I'm just not even going to go there right now with trying to create budget-friendly meals. I've heard all of these excuses. I've made a lot of them myself, and this is the sneaky excuse that I think all of these other things, and it could be a dozen more other excuses that you've come up with in your head, but they all are the same excuse, and I'll tell you what it is. Are you ready? It is, I am not enough. Oh, it hurts. It hurts. And it sounds so harsh, and you might not be thinking like, oh yeah, I'm telling myself all the time, I'm not enough. A lot of us don't want to think that about ourselves. We don't want to think that we have that kind of like, what is the word? Nefarious internal self-talk. We don't want to think that we are that negative. And on the surface, we are not. And maybe even a little deeper down, we are not that negative about ourselves typically. But here's the thing. All of those excuses that I mentioned earlier, really, they do boil down to us thinking we either are not enough or do not have enough for it to be possible for us to dive in to something that we know is going to be good for us. And here is why I think that we have that mentality. I think culture, here we go. Someone out there is going to be like, oh great, here goes Allie on her soapbox about culture. Here's why I think it is. We have this belief because culture is telling women constantly, whether it be through Instagram, Pinterest, media channels, that we cannot possibly do all of this ourselves. So we need something else to help us make it happen.
Hey, I'm interrupting this video really quick with an editor's note because I realized I had something else to say, and that is that I am all for modern convenience. I don't want y'all thinking that I don't take advantage of stuff like Instacart or, other services that help us with all of the small tasks that we have to accomplish as women that we do in addition to the massive tasks of like having jobs and raising humans, sometimes both simultaneously. I don't know why that became a thing. Anyway, I am just saying that when services say that they can come in and swoop in and save the day, save us from having to do all of these things ourselves, then I think we start thinking that we need them too, that we can't do it without them. And one of the biggest parts of our lives where I see this happening is in meal planning.
Think about it. This is why meal kit subscription services are so dang popular. Because we can't possibly prep all of the food needed for a week, by ourselves. We can't possibly do it. So we need to pay someone lots and lots of dollars to do it for us so that all we have to do is cook the food. That's why those are so popular. That's why there are entire super popular media networks that have made millions and maybe even billions of dollars on chef endorsements for cooking gadgets and other cooking kitchen products. The underlying message here that I think we end up internalizing, they're not saying this stuff out loud, but we as women internalize a lot, don't we? My husband gets so mad at me. He'll be like, why are you internalizing? And I'll be like, why are you calling me out for internalizing? I know I'm doing it. Anyway, we as women internalize a lot. And I think when we see this advertising and this messaging, I think what we are hearing is that we need to be more, or we need to have more in order to feed ourselves and our families well. And I am telling you right now, it is simply not true. And I will, until my dying breath, be shouting that from the rooftops. This is my main message that I want women to hear, that it is not true. We do not need more to be able to do this. We do not need to be more to be able to feed ourselves and our families well, to radically change the way that we eat. I say nay, nay. Are there any other John Panetta fans out there? He was such a goofball. If you've never heard of John Panetta, you have got to just go Google his I say nay nay thing. I'll even link to it. So quick note. I'm going to have show notes in my blog, just like any other podcast would. So if I mention a link or something that, you can go back and reference later, it will be housed on a blog post that is specifically made for this episode. So I will make sure that there's a 1.5-minute video of John Panetta. He's a bigger dude, and he's just hilarious. He has this little voice, and he's talking about how salad is not actually food, and it's so funny. You have to watch it. If you're having a bad day, definitely visit that John Panetta link. Okay, totally got sidetracked by that. Sorry. So, back to those excuses. Another one that I run across in my own life a lot when it comes to stuff outside of meal planning, creating a new daily routine for myself, or trying to figure out when it is that I'm going to work out, or having a new exercise routine. That's really when this one comes into play for me. I don't know where to begin, so I'm frozen. Does that ever happen to you? And then we get so stuck. And, I think the reason for that overwhelm, at least for me, and I bet this is true for you too, is that I have this perfectionist mentality when it comes to stuff sometimes. I hate it, but it's true. It's probably never going to go away. It's something that I've just learned about myself, and I'm trying to figure out how to deal with it. But I'm a firstborn, maybe that's why. I have this perfectionist mentality about starting something new. I will take a look at a thing that I want to accomplish. So say I want to accomplish this, starting a new workout schedule for me that works for my week, finding a time every single day to work out. What's going to be the workout that I do? What's the routine? I will look at accomplishing that kind of schedule shift, and it just feels too big. One of the biggest mental blocks is perfectionism. So for me, if I don't have a solution perfectly figured out from start to finish before I dive in on that issue that I want to fix, whatever, then I don't want to dive in at all. And so I don't end up getting anything done because I'm waiting for it to look perfect from the outside for me to even get in there and get my hands dirty. So you might already know this, and this is the reason why my house is covered in moving boxes right now. We just moved from Indiana to Florida on Friday, so 3 or 4 days ago. What day is it? Tuesday, so 4 days ago. I know, I'm crazy. So in the process of moving, my husband will corroborate this story. We've moved a lot over the last 10 years together. And I have this perfectionist mentality when it comes to packing. And it's just a thing. I tell myself every single time, well, let's just get it done instead of getting it done perfectly. And I still run myself ragged trying to get it done perfectly. So I will literally go behind Ryan and untape and unpack boxes that he has packed because I have this idea of how I want them to be. I want everything to be put in the right box, and I want everything that needs to go in one room to make sense that's in the box and be organized and be packed well so that it doesn't break and all of these things. It's fine, but Ryan's approach gets it done fast. Maybe 2-3 days, he could have the whole entire house packed up. Whereas it takes me at least twice as long to do the same amount of work packing because I have this perfectionist mentality. And I'm not necessarily saying it's better to do something fast versus doing it really, really well. I will spend, especially in business, in cooking, there are lots of areas in my life, art, where I do want to make sure that something is done right, and I am okay with spending a long time on it so that I can get it right. But there's definitely a balance there, you know? Here's what I don't think is healthy. I don't think it's healthy to fret so much over perfection that you miss out on all of the progress that you could be making along the way. So like with my schedule, instead of just structuring my day and trying it and, you know, risking that it might not go as smoothly as I want it to go on day one, and then throwing my hands on day one and being like, see, that I knew this wasn't going to be perfect. That's a risk that you take, that it's not going to go perfectly from day one. But until you just try it, just risk that it's not going to be perfect, but get in there and get dirty, get your hands dirty, I mean, you're not going to make any progress towards that goal. Thinking about it as if it's going to be perfect or else I'm not even going to start is definitely not going to get you there. At least if you're in it and you're trying things and you're risking it maybe not being perfect from the get-go, at least you're getting closer to where you want to be. Some of the most practical advice I have ever heard on this topic came from a Bigger Pockets podcast. And if you're not familiar with Bigger Pockets, it's basically like a real estate investing forum. And they also have a podcast that my husband listens to. So real estate investing is a thing that we do as a team, as a separate business, aside from meal planning. Just fun fact about us. And he was listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast. And the guy that was talking was telling a story about selling his car. He was trying to illustrate a point that like diving into real estate investing can be kind of hard or seem really scary or seem too big to even get started. So he used this illustration of trying to sell his car to make his point. And the illustration went like this. He said, I do not know how to sell a car. It seems like a really big thing that I could probably screw up. But instead of just saying, I don't know how to sell a car, and I'm going to take it to a dealership and have them do it for me, just like we talked about earlier on in this episode, instead of thinking about it that way, what he instead did was he got in closer to the problem. And he said, well, you know what? I might not know how to sell my car, but I do know that a car has to be clean in order for it to sell. And I have a vacuum cleaner and I can vacuum the car out. And I also know that I can run it through the car wash. And that's a thing that's going to have to be done. So then he went and took his car through the car wash. And then he thought, well, you know, the next step, I guess, would be for me to like Google the make and model of my car and the year and find out what my car is worth. So then he did that. And then the next step would be, I guess I should take some pictures of my car so that I can list it for sale. So then he did that. And then he knew how to make a Facebook listing on Marketplace. And then he did that. And by the end of taking these baby steps, I'll be damned, his car was sold. So we look at things from this 30,000 foot view, and we look down on these big types of progress or these big shifts that we want to make in our lives, and we get so overwhelmed by the 30,000 foot view of this big thing that needs to be accomplished. When you step back and look at the thing that you want to be part of your life from that 30,000 foot view, and when you have that perfectionist mentality, you're always going to see it as one big thing that you have to get right, and that will always scare you away from accomplishing any of it. But once you get in there, and once you start doing the work little by little, starting with step one, then you're in it. Then you've already crossed the threshold. So you've got to get in there. It's like lighting a match. I use this illustration a lot in our lives because we tend to make big, huge changes. I don't know why. It's just this thing that Ryan and I do. We have a high capacity for change, and we do these things that can seem really, really scary. And so this is something that I kind of figured out along the way, and I'll talk about it every once in a while when we come up on one of these major decisions in our lives. It's like lighting a match in a long, dark tunnel. You can strike a match and see for maybe the next 10 steps, and then the match goes out. It's burned up. So you have to strike another one so that you can see to go the next 10 steps. And you just keep doing that, match after match, 10 steps here, 10 steps there, and then you're through the tunnel on the other side. But if you're not making those baby steps in faith, striking those matches, believing that you're going to be able to just take the next step, and it might not be perfect, but you're going to get there, unless you can do that, you're never even going to step into that dark tunnel. And that could be anything. So I want you to ask yourself, what is it that is holding you back from starting to take the necessary steps to radically improve the way your family eats? So let's bring this back to meal planning. Maybe you just were not taught much about cooking as a kid. Or maybe you are afraid that you are a bad cook. That is fine. Can you read? Can you follow instructions? I think all of us can. We learned how to do this stuff in kindergarten, right? So grab a recipe and start there. That is a baby step that you can take until you get in there and you get in the kitchen and trial and error and literally get your hands dirty in the kitchen. You're never going to make progress on becoming a better or more clever or more creative cook. You have got to start. Start with a recipe. Start with something that's interesting but attainable. Just take baby steps. Is your schedule super busy? And are you stuck on seeing time management as this massive hurdle in front of you, and that is keeping you in a cycle of eating out or eating convenience foods or eating unhealthy foods? You might need to start by zooming in a little bit on your schedule. What is in there that can go? We as women and as families at this day and age, I don't know why this is a thing, but we take on way too much. And this might be a topic for an entirely separate episode, but here's the truth. If your kids' activities are causing your family to be so busy that your family is never getting real food that you have cooked at home, I am risking that this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, but this is the God's honest truth. You are not doing your kids any favors. They're going to grow up in the same cycle, thinking that cooking is too hard, I don't have time, if I am not running around crazy and frazzled, I'm not doing enough. And they're not going to understand the value of real food, and that's going to cause major issues for them. Take something off of the schedule. That is a baby step. Start there. Start by saying no to one thing this week. That's something I want to challenge you to do. If your schedule is too crazy, start by saying no to one thing to allow more white space in your routine. Here's another one. Is your grocery budget out of control and you're just too overwhelmed by the thought of getting it under control that you just can't get it in check and you are like have the blinders on and you're refusing to go there? It is scary. It can be scary. I know because I have been there for a long time. I didn't even want to know what we were spending on food because I had a bad feeling and I knew that it was going to be a big shift and I was just too scared to find out. So here is where to start. Here's a baby step that I suggest that you take if you're in that place right now. Download mint.com, mint.com, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes, and find out what you are spending. Start there. It might be scary, but do it anyway. We can do hard things. Once you know what you're spending, you can do something about it. Instead of sticking your head in the sand, people call it ostriching. Have you ever heard that? Instead of ostriching and sticking your head in the sand, you have to come up into the light and not be afraid of finding out what you are spending, because once you know, you can do something about it. Start there. Find out. Download mint.com. It's a free app. That is a baby step that you can take. So to bring it all home, here is what I am suggesting if you are feeling too overwhelmed to start with meal planning. This is what you have to do. You have got to get closer to the problem. And like I said at the beginning, this mentality will spill out into other areas of your life, which is only a good thing. So this might apply under a microscope to meal planning, but this is going to apply to other big things that you want to accomplish in your life. This could apply to starting a new workout routine, or just getting your daily schedule in check, or whatever it may be. Get closer to the problem. Instead of taking a step back and looking at this thing that you want to accomplish from a 30,000-foot view, instead of looking at it as a whole big thing and never starting, I encourage you to take a step closer to the problem. Get in there. Get your hands dirty. You do not need to research more about it. That is just another wall that you're putting up that is stopping you from getting started. Stop Googling and just freaking do it. Just take step one. Take that baby step. The only way you're going to figure out what works best for your family is to trial and error it. The perfect meal prep recipe plan. I don't know why I have a hard time saying recipe plan, but I really do. Recipe plan. It's not going to make it happen. The perfect fridge side menu organizer thing is not going to make that big shift that you want to make happen. The perfect coupon app on your phone is not going to make your budget happen. The perfect daily planner is not going to make your daily routine come easier, or it's not going to make you more organized in your day. I can promise you these things because I have tried them, and I know so many women who do the same thing. We all look for that perfect solution, and that kind of keeps us from having to take ownership of making this big change that we want to make. So start with the most practical first baby step that you can take. So before we end today's episode, I have a takeaway for you, and that is one very practical first step that you can take right now if you just feel like you don't know where to start with meal planning. If it's something that you know would be so great for your family and you've been thinking about trying it for a long time, maybe you've even tried out some different planners that haven't worked, or any of those tools that you think were going to make it happen for you and it's just not coming together, I have a strategy that you can start using right now that is the most practical and most important baby step for you to start taking. And that is to take inventory. To start with what you already have. Take a look in your refrigerator. Take a look in your pantry before you ever even begin to write a grocery list. You got to write it all down. Instead of trying to remember the contents of your fridge when you're out at the grocery store, which never works, take some time, write down what's in your fridge, write down what's in your pantry, and try to start thinking about what you can make out of those ingredients before you head back out to the store for the next week's groceries. Try to come up with a plan from there. So if you loved this and you want to take this a step further and you're saying, yes, Allie, I want to take that next baby step so that I can figure out how to get this meal planning thing under control, awesome. I have a free download that I've created for you. It is called the Taking Inventory Cheat Sheet, and it gives you a bunch of my favorite tips and strategies for how exactly to take inventory, the categories that I put things in, and so it's got all of those strategies in there for you, and then it also has a sample blank inventory list page for you to use. So if you want, you can go ahead and download that, and before you start writing a grocery list for next week, use this free cheat sheet that I've got for you and take inventory of your kitchen. And I promise you, just by taking that little baby step, you will be well on your way to thinking and being in the right mindset to meal plan on a more regular basis. I promise this is one of the most important things that you can do. All right, so that's all I have for today. This was so much fun. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I'm going to continue to do this every week for you guys. The location, like I said, might be a little different. Sometimes I'm going to have Ryan on to talk with me, and I would love to even interview some other people too, and we're just going to make this a more fun, a more interactive way for you to get the training that you need to get around meal planning, but also just the encouragement that you need as a mom. So next week's episode is all about getting your kids to eat relatively, I've got little air parentheses quotes things, how to get your kids to eat relatively the same thing as you. And I promise there are going to be some surprising takeaways for you from next week's episode. So that's what I've got for you next week. I'm so excited, and I will see you again soon.